Now let's talk about how to choose an activity for your classroom. Now, as you're going through all of the different activities that are on the Hour of Code website, the thing you want to be considering, what we recommend you consider, is what we call cognitive load. And the idea behind cognitive load is that there are these are basically the difficulties encountered in learning, and we want to try and minimize these things. And there's three different aspects of cognitive load that are basically barriers to achieving learning objectives for students. The first is intrinsic. This is the challenge of learning the thing itself, right? And this is what's necessary, the difficulty that is necessary for learning any particular topic, right? There's always some intrinsic cognitive load in learning something new. The two things that we can affect are the extrinsic, which is the extra stuff in the environment that can be a barrier to learning something, right? So it's problems with technology, it's lack of interest, it's the environment that the students are in, whether it's loud or confusing or distracting. It's the extra difficulties that are separate from the core thing that they're trying to learn, right? And we want to try and minimize any extrinsic cognitive load on students. And as teachers, we definitely want to do that. We're familiar with this all the time, creating a safe, clean learning environment for students to accomplish the best that they can. And then there's the germane cognitive load. And what this is the effort that's required to make the learning objectives, to build schemas, to build patterns that can be applied to other domains besides the specific instance of learning. So this is where students sort of learn to generalize and really integrate what they're learning. So basically, intrinsic we can't really change. The extrinsic we want to try and minimize, and the germane cognitive load, that's the part that we want to facilitate. We don't necessarily want to minimize that. We kind of want to give the opportunity for students to integrate the knowledge that they're acquiring into their own sort of ideas, and then be able to apply it in different domains. So, and another thing too is, to help with this, we want to match student interests. So if you've got a lot of students that are into Minecraft, if you've got a lot of students that are into robots, if they're into design, if they're into art, there's a lot of different activities, and helping students match. We might consider getting 2 or 3 different activities and letting students choose based on their own interests and what they find interesting to accomplish the same goals. Right. So let's look at some example activities. And the first one is called Robot Rattle, and it's designed for grades 2 to 8. So let's check this one out. So this one is based around managing a robot arm. And as it's loading, we'll look at how this works and what's going on. I'm going to skip over the introductory thing. So this one is a non-typing challenge, and it's based around this interface called Blockly. And the Blockly interface is basically you get to drag and drop actions onto the programming space, and you can do things like change the parameters and stuff like that. So when I click play, which is way over here, then it's going to rotate the robot arm, the green disc, by 90 degrees, and we'll see what happens there. Awesome. It hits the ball, it goes into the goal, the little guy dances, and everybody's happy, right? And then it continues, and the challenge gets more and more complicated. So you get new options, you get different things that you have to do. So this one would be a 2-step program. And there's 10 of these, working all the way up to some really difficult challenges that have many steps and many different actions that are involved, which can get pretty complicated, which is pretty cool. This is a good challenge for students that are interested in robots. It's very visual. I find that students, when they have something, when rather than something just sort of non-visual happening, it doesn't really respond super well. Students love it when the program that they write, that they construct, actually does something that they can see, and they can see each of the steps and how they equate to their particular program and stuff like that. And these are really awesome. I think this is a really fun challenge, and it's really exciting to see students go through it. Let's look at another one. So the next one is called Code HS Turtle. So this is a turtle-based programming environment. So in this one, this is a little more sophisticated challenge. As we saw in the notes, that this is for grades 6+, and it's a programming challenge. So the video gives you a little bit of an introduction to how these different statements work, what they do, and the parameters that they take. And this is very similar to what we've been exploring in our class. And you can see the syntax is a little bit different. They have a little bit of slightly different language, but all of the commands are very similar to what we ended up with. So they give you a little starter example, and you hit run code, and you can see how the turtle works out and builds a little T, right? And then they give, by hitting next, you get a little challenge which says, now do something yourself. Write some code that draws a bubble letter, any bubble letter, and you can write out the instructions as it goes. And this is really cool for students to be a little bit more creative with what they're doing. The next one also is CA Python. So this is Code Avengers, and this one is again, it's a different kind of turtle interface. Again, this one is very similar to the one that we were working on in our class, and it runs in a very similar way. The animations are a little bit different, and they do a little bit more sophisticated things, and they run through all the way up through things like decision, or actually it runs through loops, so you get a little bit more sophisticated activities. We can go all the way to task 10 and see what they're talking about. So here they talk about loops in the code. This is actually a little bit more sophisticated than most of the activities that you'll see on this. Most of the activities in Hour of Code are purely sequential. Do these steps and get the challenge correct. And that's a great start, but I like to push my students a little bit more and start to have them experience some of the higher level concepts that are available. And in this particular instance, we got loops, which is a really great way to demonstrate the concept of loops. And in this particular run, we'll get to see what the thing does, and it ends up drawing an environment. And you saw that it moved forward. It drew out a big box that puts down the blue color, and then rather than doing what is it? It would be 8 of these statements. We have a loop that repeats 4 times doing the exact same thing. So that's a little bit more complicated for students to get involved with, and might be more appropriate for a higher level classroom. And then finally, we've got an activity that's designed for high school students that is a little bit more sophisticated. And what this is built in is the processing environment, which is a really amazing, powerful tool to do some really incredible work. And what it is it's a variant of the Java programming language that allows you to draw things in color on an environment. And it's a programming language designed for artists, which is really fascinating and really interesting. So you can use this code to draw things very simply onto your canvas space, and there's even interaction activities where you can get keyboard input, you can control the mouse, you can do things that are interactive, and it's really exciting, and it's amazing the power of this thing. You can make simulations, and you can make art projects, and you can make interactive installations, and all kinds of things. This is way more sophisticated than a lot of the other Hour of Code activities, and it becomes but it's something that is really enabling for students. Processing is very powerful, and it's a very exciting tool set. And it might be for students that want to express themselves, that want to do something that looks like a game, they want to write a game, anything like that. That'd be a great set of tools. So the idea here ultimately is that for these activities, you want to find something that's appropriate for your students' interest, that's appropriate for their age level, that you think that they can accomplish during that 1 hour and that they'll be interested in, right? And ultimately, you're the best judge of your students. But these are some guidelines that you should use, that we think we should use to help you choose the activity that's appropriate for your classroom.